Welcome, mortals. Good to be back here with Steven. We've been away for a couple weeks, and a lot has happened in the mortal realms, especially Flesh Eater Courts, the big thing. You and I have not really had an opportunity to hang out on stream and talk this army.
No, I don't think I've spoke to you in like 2 weeks.
I know it's been a while, and now we've arrived back in matching shirts.
I know. Why did you wear the shirt? Why did you not? I feel like you did this on purpose.
Well, we gifted you your shirt today, and you're the first one that came. Like, everybody's gotten their shirts today because we came back from Thanksgiving. Saray, John, Brett, all came and got their shirts today. You're the first one that just came in and just like.
Yeah, I just took my top off and put a new one on. I was like, I'm ready.
So, I'm into it. Okay, let's jump right in chat. Flesh Eater Courts. This is today's Warcom. You also announced upon arrival that you're into this FOMO box. I know Meg and I are into this FOMO box.
This will be my third FOMO box, and it will be the third one I haven't opened and built.
Yeah, so you have...
I avoided cities. I avoided cities. I was like, I don't need any of that.
I'm tearing through my city's FOMO box just now.
Yeah.
Months after.
I know, months after the FOMO has subsided, and you can buy it all normally.
So... what are you excited about with this army? What's got you purchasing and then later giving, not using your FOMO box? But let's just stick with the first part for now. Yeah. What has you purchasing a FOMO box?
Well, I think we've known that this was probably a thing coming for a while, and I think that anticipation has been building for a while of they're the one death faction that hasn't had any love. And we all were hoping, man, they've really gotten to something good with they're a bunch of delusional people that think they're living in a medieval kingdom, and they're actually cannibalistic psychopaths. And
right.
and the fact that they've lent into it, fully committed to it, I think is so exciting. That they've all got banners and heraldry, and they've got knights and mounts, and they all think they're doing the noble work.
They really are going into it.
They are
harder.
And that for me is what made me want to get this, because I'm like, okay, they've really lent into it in a big way, and I am here for it.
They're kind of becoming the comic relief of death.
Yeah, in a really but still in a really grim way.
Right.
Because they aren't funny. They're kind of terrifying.
You're sort of laughing at them, but also they are scary.
Yeah, you're laughing at them, but from a very, very safe, respectable distance.
Right, exactly.
You don't want to be near them, but they are very, very cool.
Yeah, everybody is super into the Flying Knights.
The Flying Knights are everyone has been screaming about this for so long. This is what the army missed. And there's quite a few armies in the same boat, not having a cool cavalry unit.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're getting what looks like, just going off base size, is monstrous cavalry. They aren't
this looks like Mornfang size.
Yes,
yeah?
they're not light
Chaos
cavalry.
Knight.
They're a bit bigger. I mean, the rules will be what ultimately determines their role in the army, but they look big. The monsters look scary.
Yeah.
But I love that they've got banners and stuff. It's great.
I think he's called a courtier. The
Vargolf?
Vargolf. Yeah, Vargolf.
Yeah,
courtier.
isn't this a new sculpt of the thing that came in the Cursed City box? It's the same monster?
That's a Vargskier. I know Meg has one of those for Soul Blight, but it is insanely similar. It is the same kind of concept.
It's just a big monstrous ghoul monster.
Is Vargolf the German version and Vargskier the Eastern?
Well,
European
they
version?
were called Vargolfs.
Okay.
So they back in the old world, they were Vargolfs, yeah.
Nick Garcia points out something interesting, which is on this card pack here. It shows what they think they look like. You can see the little...
Yeah, I didn't notice this until he pointed it out, and I love that. I love that the card is different artwork, just leaning into that whole delusion thing.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It is interesting.
The fact that the box guy's got a Jacobean ruff of bones. Of ribs. It's amazing.
Okay, listen, we're going to keep talking about that. We're going to keep talking about Flesh Eater Courts here for a bit before we get to our topic of the day, which is shooting.
Yeah.
But before we even come here, I also want to call out two other things in today's release that where no one's talking about. First of all, you actually kind of de-escalated my excitement and weirdness in the fact that they have made clear plastic.
They have done this before, yeah.
And I didn't realize that. This is unusual.
They did it for Frodo and Bilbo, and I think they've done the ring wraiths in their Twilight form. I think they've done it.
Okay.
A similar thing.
Now, do they expect you to like paint. Is what they've done here with these models like paint the top half?
Yeah, so I think what people do is they I think these are good for inks.
Okay.
And you like pick out the lines between the detail, and then
Okay.
you use like very glazed washes to kind of just tint the plastic. But they are proper clear plastic. They're exactly what you're thinking about. They
Yeah.
are like just clear,
That's interesting.
like acrylic.
I like that they're. This is weird, and I'm kind of into it, but I do have to say that if these came out for an Age of Sigmar army, I probably wouldn't be that into it. I'd probably just paint the army.
Yeah, and like
But
they could
perfect
have
for
done it
this
with Nighthorn, but I think the Nighthorn, like the fact that these are very traditionally sculpted like ghosts, I would
Yeah.
say. I think what they did with Nighthorn was so much more experimental and so much more engaging. Like,
Same.
The sculpts are so good.
Yeah.
Like these now, like I remember when these came out and everyone was like, "Oh wow, look at these ghosts! These are awesome models," which
Yeah,
they
yeah.
are. But you look at compared to the technology that they can do, floaty, ghosty things now, it's like these almost seem kind of primitive.
Megan and I actually, she painted these in her stream while I was painting Nighthorn at the same time, and she got through so many of these.
Yeah.
Okay, now the other thing I just wanted to bring out, also kind of weird. No one's talking about weird Brimstein Firegrass. I don't know what to say about it myself, but
I mean, I feel like Games Workshop are late to their own party with this. I feel like there's
absolutely.
about a dozen versions of this that you can get online, and will probably, unfortunately, be half the price, if not less.
Now, yeah, and this is also not very many.
No.
Anyone who toughs their army, first of all, when you use toughs, the more the merrier.
Oh yeah, I go through dozens of them.
Right, and this is not very many in a maybe that's double stacked, but even still,
maybe. I mean, that doesn't even look like a real product. That looks like a prototype of packaging. That doesn't even look like it's finished yet. Like, is that really what the boxes are like now? They're just white.
For a lot, like here's like.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
We happen to have a product right here.
Yeah. Okay, weird.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was weird. And I don't know what. Like I said, don't know.
Weird for them to be jumping in it now and with this one specific color. Like, you'd think if they were doing a range, like, oh, here's a blue, here's a red, here's a green.
That's
go
kind of what I was.
The fact
wondering.
that it's like, here's a random red.
So they do have some already, but they're not. I think they're just like normal green. Like
yeah, I have their their default green ones.
Right.
So they're all right.
Yeah, you'd think they'd do a couple if they're going to do weird colors. I agree with you. It is 155 tufts. Actually, that's an okay amount. It says here. That's okay.
I mean, it depends how much it is, though, right?
Yeah, it does. But in either way, for an army, you're going to need like 2 of these. But kind of interesting. I actually, before we get back to Flesh Eater Courts, it does make me wonder, when you said late to the party on this.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to a GW narrative, when I went to the GW narrative event, a couple years back, GW makes neoprene mats that we all use.
Yeah.
Why don't they sell those?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like,
I think they're a business that wish they could sell everything. I think they wish they could be the all-in-one. You can get everything for your hobby in one place.
Yeah.
But I just think there's too many other companies out there doing many good products where it's like you.
But they make the mats.
They do make the mats.
Selling it, I guess, is a whole nother thing. Also, kind of weirdly, I actually sort of like all the GW mats I've seen because
yeah, the quality is good.
The quality's good, and then the other thing is about them is that they're fairly neutral.
Yeah.
And they could also use their own IP all over the mat if they wanted to.
They could
have some really cool Azure,
like
you know, or
maybe it's a thing
stuff.
maybe it's a thing stemming back from the retail versus online business where it's like if they sell a product then it has to be in stores, and how many of those are they realistically going to sell from a store day in, day out, week to week, month to month? That number's probably so low that they can't justify packaging it and making a SKU and doing all that. I also don't know where they get those printed. I don't know if they are printed in Nottingham like a lot of things, or if they're made elsewhere.
They had a relationship at some time with Frontline Gaming. You know, of course, they were running events kind of together, and so it might have just been something they were helping them with. I have no clue. Anyway, seeing this product just made me be like, what's GW up to? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Now, we wanted to go back. You maybe more than anyone else. that I've talked to are insanely excited about this. Not
This
in a
guy's
bad
amazing.
way. Meg was excited about him too. I like him.
He's wearing intestines for a hat.
You couldn't get over this though.
It's so good. It's so good. I saw this. I don't even know where I was, but I immediately messaged you. I saw this and I was like, oh my god, this model. It's so, like, peak Age of Sigmar, peak Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Just look at that ghoul thinking he's a judge, wearing someone's guts for a wig.
He kind of is what made me realize they're doing the comic relief thing with this army. Yeah.
Does he judge crimes? I want the short story on Warhammer Unity of his courtroom. I want to know what he is judging and what the sentences are.
He safeguards the nation from within, upholding the spirit of civility, reason, and decency
of course.
even-handed judgment.
Of course. Tell me you don't want that narrative. Give me that book. I want a novel by Dan Abnett.
Oh, I see.
About this guy.
I
want this guy's story.
Oh my gosh,
he's great. He's even brought books with him.
The books are a mess.
I love a character that just has a pile of books on a battlefield. But this guy, I imagine this guy would also wreck you if he wanted to, because he's still a vampire and he's wielding a big club.
Yeah.
So I like this guy. I can't wait for his rules to be absolute trash. You will never see him on a table.
He's a name,
beautiful model.
He's a named character. You pointed out right before we got started that can often mean that they don't get whatever like the season perk is. We've seen a lot of season perks help Littlefoot characters.
Yeah.
I somehow expect that trend to some degree to continue even into a new edition.
Yeah.
Let me say I wouldn't be surprised to see some versions of it like.
No, I think you're right, but yeah, I love this guy.
Yeah.
I think he's great.
Okay. Now, we also have actual rules. This is you were excited for this. This is a mechanic. This is like a ongoing mechanic. I will say, Age of Sigmar has had some mixed results with the mechanics.
Yep.
But I do think overall most of them work pretty well. How do you feel about the existing mechanics out there? We've got depravity dice. We've got
relentless discipline. We've got cities orders. We've got summoning points of varying degrees of flavor. We've got disease points. We've got blood tithe points.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I like about this one is it's a bit more passive than the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
You're just tallying stuff up and then you can kind of use them in very specific ways, or they just result in more stuff happening when you get to a number of them, which I think is the right balance, because this rewards... You don't get any of this for free. You have to go do stuff. And that's different.
But it's not too bad what you actually have to go... Our cat's sneezing. It's not too bad what you actually have to go do. It's cast a spell, pray, which we found interesting because death armies don't traditionally have priests.
Yeah, the fact that they have priests is very interesting. I'm very curious to see what their lore, their prayers are going to look like.
I guess it makes sense. They are delusional. They must believe.
Yeah, but who do they pray to then? Do they pray to their delusional god that they think is listening, who doesn't ever respond? Or do they pray to Nagash, who humors them, I guess, because he finds it hilarious?
I hope it's that.
Nagash is like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like,
okay,
here you go.
You can have +1 to wound.
Yeah. So, I'm not that guy, but here's your buff.
Here's the other one, which... that's going to be great. Here's the other one, which is just fight, actually. I thought that was kind of interesting. You don't actually have to kill anything. You just have to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think is a good reward for, like, throwing your surf units in. They're probably going to get butchered, but you're gaining... I like this idea...
No, wait, the hero has to fight.
Oh, the hero has to fight. They're vampire heroes. Like, that's where they want to be.
They can do stuff, yeah. So it's hero fight, hero cast spell, hero pray. The last one here, then they talk about the noble deeds points. Okay. So then they show you at least one thing so far that you get, which is the feeding frenzy +1 attack.
Yeah.
They already have some +1 attack mechanics in the current book.
Right.
So I can't say this is too surprising.
No, but it's also not... I don't think it's super easy to get and always going to be on, because you need 6 points for that to be a thing.
Right.
Which is, based on... If that's the only list we have, if that's the only way to get the points, 6 is like it's a couple of turns.
It is a couple of turns.
So I think that feels... It's not like it's just automatic,
No.
everyone gets +1 attack,
We can assume there'll probably be some artifacts that bump you up on this.
Probably.
Or some command
A command trait.
Or some
Get
faction.
D3 at the beginning of the turn or something.
Yeah. Okay, we also... No, I have a quick question. Going back a second.
Oh, okay.
Do you think that Crypt Guard is replacing Crypt Ghouls? Or are we gonna have both?
The ghouls are now a dual kit. So there's the halberd guys.
And those are Crypt Guard?
Yes.
And this is the Crypt Ghoul?
And they're Crypt Ghouls.
These are new Crypt Ghouls.
Yes, but I think you'll still be able to use the old models.
Yeah,
but these are the replacement for them.
Got it. Okay.
Based more on, again, they've all they've done is like give them, some makeshift bone armor because they think they're, fighters and they've got weapons more often.
The old ones are just clawing and scratching.
Yeah, because these are more akin to the warband that I've got, the Shadespire warband.
Yes.
Those ghouls. I love painting those. They were super fun, but they're a bit more like, again, leaning more into where the faction was clearly going.
Okay. Okay, now here's the other cool thing you can do with your noble deed points is you can use them as a currency basically to return models. And it's you were observing before, it's very fluid.
Yes.
It's 1 point to return a serf, like a Crypt Guard probably, or a Crypt Ghoul.
Yep.
2 points to return a knight, wholly within or within 10, and you can use it kind of however you want. If you have 6, you could a knight and 2 ghouls over here, 2 ghouls over there.
All of your heroes gain these points, and then all of them can spend them.
Yep.
So I think you're gonna want maybe 5 characters in this army.
It's so going to be
you
a
can
character
maximize how
army.
many of these points you're using.
It's going to be a character heavy army. I can see people immediately are going to be teching into, again, like we said, artifact, spell, command trait, whatever it is that gives these. In Daughters of Cain, Hagnar is one up on the blood rights.
Yep.
And it's
which I think
the
is always the best one.
Pretty much the best one. So if there's a sub faction, that's maybe something I hope they don't do. Is a sub faction that has more.
I could see them doing one where your Bat Knight guys count as battle line, so you can have a cavalry army. I think that's probably gonna be a thing.
That I can see. Sorry, I'm saying I hope one of the benefits of one of these sub factions is not give more of noble deed points because that's
sure.
sort of like the equivalent.
Yeah, because then it would feel too much of a boon.
Yeah. Looks interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Here we also have Court of Delusion, and I don't know. We don't know. We don't have any advanced copies. We haven't checked out anything with the book yet. That stuff's actually still under zip until this Saturday anyway. But do you think there are more than one? There may be just these 2 for Courts of Delusion.
I feel like there might be more. It feels weird if there was just 2.
It does feel weird.
And it doesn't really specify if you pick this once in the game and then it lasts forever.
I think you pick it at the start
during the battle.
You pick it at the start of the.
You pick it at the start of the first battle round,
and it lasts the battle.
Yeah, so I can see maybe there being 4 of these.
A few more, yeah.
Because what have we got? One to run and charge rolls, and 1 to save rolls. So I feel like I could see there's maybe a couple more.
Yeah. I think there's probably going to be something with hitting or wounding and who
maybe
knows?
A ward save one. Make your ward save better. That'd be nice. Like if you could make these guys like 5 up ward, like make them like Blight Kings, that'd be pretty tasty.
So super interesting. Now the final thing we'd be remiss to not discuss, of course, is the man himself, Ushoran. The Summer King has arrived. Here he is. We've been wondering when we would get this model. We thought, like probably most other people in the world of Age of Sigmar, that this would be coming.
Yep.
And here he is. What do you think?
He's beautiful.
Is he everything you hope for?
Yes, he is. He's absolutely everything that I wanted out of this model. Like this is such a iconic character from the vampire lore. I think they've redesigned him again. They've kept elements of him that have always been iconic, but they've elevated him in true Age of Sigmar fashion. Like he's got his crown, he's got his scepter of leadership, he's got his big cloak. Did
this guy have a model in Overworld?
I don't remember. I think they might have done a metal one way
like
back.
A little
Nagash,
one.
Little Nagash. No, after that era, but not like he was just like a vampire plus, but like. I mean, this guy's a monster.
This guy's huge.
When I saw this, I was like, this is the most Dark Souls From Software boss model they've ever got. Like, this is as close as we're ever going to get. Like, this guy looks like he's straight out of a From Soft game. Like, he's just really ornate and very, just looks like he's going to slap you I hope this guy's good. I hope he's so strong.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna be really sad if he's a mediocre. Like, if he's like what's his name, Razagul, the what's the guy, the vampire, the werewolf vampire guy from Curse City.
Oh,
Radikar.
Radikar.
If he's like Radikar, I'm gonna be so sad. This guy needs to be like
he's much bigger, right?
What? I mean, it's hard to tell. I think he's bigger.
Yeah, I
think he's on the Katakros base. He's on a big
somewhere
base.
There is a picture of him next to the rest of the army, and he's on a big base.
Yeah, I think he's on the Katakros like diorama base.
Yeah, it does.
And he fills it.
Yeah, there he is.
So yeah, I was saying to you, I hope he's kind of a blend of auras and buffing the whole army because he's their king, he's their noble lord. They're all inspired by his presence, and then also this other part being he's a literal ogre-sized vampire, and he will mess you up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love this guy. I think there's probably a few more kits to go. I don't think we've seen the whole range yet. I think there might be a second wave like with Seraphon that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
That's going to come early next year.
Interesting, okay.
But I think this is a fantastic refresh, and I'm very, very excited to read this book.
Yeah, I like it. Here in the back in this picture, we see the current Crypt Ghoul model. Good to see that's hanging around. I think that model does still hold
Yeah,
up.
and it still looks great.
Yeah. And see, are those on the left? Is that the old?
They're the older ghouls, yeah.
Oh, sorry. In the back there, what are those? What are the big ones called? Crypt Horrors.
Crypt Horrors, yes.
But see, why? See, this is why I don't think that they're that Crypt Ghoul and Crypt. I think Crypt Guard can just have two different weapon options.
Oh, okay. You think they've just new name, new kit, and they're keeping them separate?
I think they're two different things. Because they wouldn't put him in a picture like this, would they? I've never. That's. I know it's like kind of unusual. It's like a bold statement for me to say that, but I feel like this is them showing.
I think if that's true,
yeah,
I think the book will strongly favor the new ones.
Sure.
I think it will strongly favor the new ones.
But that would only be two battle line for this army.
Well, because I think they could have different. The Crypt Guard could have different. They could be two scrolls. They could have different rules. One could literally be a bodyguard unit, and one could be more of a combat piece.
So, but even then, that's only 3 battle line.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, that's still so.
But I think you'll have sub factions or heroes that will make the Crypt Horrors battle line, the Bat Knights battle line. I think they'll lean into that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's just interesting.
But it's not. Like, there is kind of a Terrorgeist in the background there, but I was going to be like, it's telling that there's no Terrorgeist in this photo, but there is one.
Steven's really hoping for a new kit in that. I think that kit would be also for Soulblight Gravelords, right? Theoretically.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the one thing where I'm like, maybe they won't, but like look at that kit compared to like Ushoran. Like, no, it looks like one's a cartoon character, and the other one, like, that's the level of detail and quality they get out of big kits now.
And the vampire lord on it is hideous.
Yeah, so like I think that kit needs a redo.
It absolutely needs a redo. I mean, can you imagine how cool they can be?
And the Terrorgeist, I mean, unless they've just completely, like, it could go the way of the Stegodon, where Terrorgeist have been the only way to play this book for like 3 years.
Yeah.
They could just be like, well, guess what? Terrorgeist, now rubbish, 500 points each. Good luck. Yeah. And they could just completely do it the other way, like they did with Stegodons, where they're just like, they just don't want you to play Stegodons anymore.
Yeah. Kind of interesting, curious, excited to see what happens with this book. Okay, Steven.
Mm-hmm.
We want to talk a little bit shooting today. I thought that we have a poll up.
Do we?
Asking people which army to hurt them the most in the shooting phase. We have a few votes, so we'll give this to the end of the stream.
Which army hurts people who vote in the most? So who's suffered the most at the hands of shooting?
Yeah, who has been hurt the most? No, yes, which army has hurt people the most with their shooting?
Okay,
so you see the options there. We got Bloodstalkers, Raptors, Lumineth, Caradon. A lot of Order armies, as we know.
Well, it's because you have to be an Order faction to know how to use weapons.
Yeah,
there's just these guys.
These guys don't have any. There's no archer guys.
Can you imagine how deluded would you have to be a ghoul firing a bow?
I want to see it.
I feel like that's a level of delusion where even they can't accept that delusion.
Yeah, death armies are not into
No, they're not shooting.
We have only the crossbow.
The crossbows.
Yeah.
Well, I still am holding out hope that maybe one day Bone Reapers will get a wave 2 and they will get archers because they absolutely
They have
should
one,
have.
don't they have one?
Yeah, they have one guy. They have one guy.
They have the technology.
Yeah, they do. He needs to train more people. He needs to take a bunch of Mortek Guard and just teach them how to fire bows.
Okay, so I thought about shooting from my competitive play, and before we do move on, also one other thing, which is I do want to thank Soups as always for supporting the channel, gifting membership, and Zelnasty. Nice to hang with Zelnasty in our Discord the other day while we were hobbying. I was building speaking of shooting, some Fusiliers. Which I think are going to be a true terror. And one of the things that actually prompted me to want to have a shooting episode. Okay.
Want to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, make myself feel better for what I'm about to do to...
I'm excited to play against cities.
To the world. Yeah, they look fun. Okay. From my perspective, these are sort of the three main scary concepts in shooting. And as you can see, they kind of line up with what I put in the poll. Now, I know there are other things. We're going to talk about deepkin sharks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the high volume, the things you get in, like sentinels, bloodstalkers.
Yeah.
Blissbarb archers.
I mean, I feel like every season we have one unit that is the terror of shooting, and it's always a shooting unit. Like the first season, it was Vanguard Raptors with long strike bows, right? It was like they were the terror of everything. And then it was the your shooty ladies, the Bloodstalkers, and then it was Lumineth.
And you're naming these things, and I'm kind of like, I think he's got the order right, but it doesn't matter because they don't really often go away. They usually go away from a aggressive points.
Yeah, points and rules reduction. Like I remember the Stormcast one, the long strikes went away because they made them more expensive, not by a lot, but enough. And then they also changed the
couldn't be reinforced
Stormcast ability where you can't double fire them
if they're reinforced.
Yeah,
right.
Whereas once per game. Whereas snakes can just fire twice every turn, even if there's 10 of them. And they're just like, yeah, okay, whatever.
And be 15 of them, right? Yeah, and also worth pointing out, even used to see one of the best troops in the game was Judicators when they could do that too.
I have 10 Judicators and I painted them for first edition and I've used them every edition. Yeah, Judicators are great. Yeah. They've always been great.
So a couple things we want to talk about in the shooting conversation. I want to ask you and folks at home watching along, feel free to chime in with your experiences being shot in the mortal realms.
Yeah.
But one thing is shooting cost? As I'm building different cities, factions, and kind of deciding what I want to paint, Fusiliers 170 for 10. That price actually went up. Already has gone up. The Alchemite Warforger, he went up 20 points.
Really?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Wow. Do they only playtest once they've sent the book to publishing? They're like, right, the book's gone. Let's start testing. Let's see what happens with this army because I feel like this is a modern trend.
Yeah. The day one points.
The day one point adjustments. Because the books takes like 6 months.
Because what information are they getting? Just people seeing things and being like, what the heck?
I don't know. Yeah. I do not know.
Well, the FOMO box has been out for a while, and the book. So but
people aren't playing 2K games day one.
And there's no Fusiliers in the.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know where they're getting the info.
Yeah, there's no Fusiliers in the box, in the FOMO box.
I don't know.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah, so Bloodstalkers are a good example for me. I got to a point where, as deadly and scary as they were, I stopped taking them because. On top of Marathi, it was too many points.
Yeah.
By the time you had, the Bloodstalkers are 360 for 10. Mm-hmm. Marathi's 700. Yep. So over 1,060 points. And then now build the rest of your army. You now need battle line. You don't have battle line yet.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Unless you're in a not great sub faction.
Yeah.
And you need buffing characters for your battle line. Yep. So you need to now stock Witch Elves and High Gladiatrixes and Hag Queens and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the points dry up fast.
Yep.
So what shooting is out there that you feel like is worth it still?
I think the immediate thing that springs to mind is like skinks.
Skinks?
Yeah, like skinks with the blow darts, or like the chameleon skinks, right?
Okay, or like the Hunters of Hawachi.
Yeah, Hunters of Hawachi as they're now called. Yeah, like for me, shooting is meant to be softening up targets before you go in for combat. I don't think the game has ever really wanted to be in a place where you can just have all shooting, no combat, because it's not the game. It's not what it's about.
Right.
And you can build to get close to that, but I think there's always balancing factors with shooting. Because as soon as you mentioned this morning that we are going to talk about this, I've been stewing on it today and just thinking about it. And it's like shooting has to absolutely be in the game.
Yes.
There is not a world where AoS gets rid of shooting, because it will.
Right.
It's a good counter to certain things. And if you go, okay, everything is just melee, some armies will just absolutely dominate for the rest of time. There will be no stopping them.
Right.
Because they need that counter. But the other thing that I think, the reason we keep seeing these problematic shooting units is because they either give them too many buffs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like the synergies overlap to make something super efficient.
I want to talk about that for sure.
Or the terrain rules just need to get better. Terrain needs to be the big factor that prevents shooting from being dominant. And the reality is, as good as 3rd edition is, the terrain rules aren't sufficient to do that job.
This is something that actually we've seen 40k do well, which is make it so that shooting is still effective, but melee units have recourse and ways to maybe say, I'm even gonna have to look at shooting 1 round, not waddle across the board and get shot after 3 rounds.
And then you have other mechanics like the fact that if you're in melee with a shooting unit, they can only shoot the target they're in melee with, so that helps you alleviate how good those units can be. Because I don't know if you've played recently against a Lumineth army with like 40 Sentinels, but you get into them, that game is over.
Yeah.
They just die.
They just die, yeah.
But if you don't get to them, they will table you just very, very comfortably.
Yeah.
And it's it's needing those different counterbalance mechanics that need to all exist to create a healthy ecosystem and a meta that keeps changing and evolving. And it's why, when we talk about, Def don't have shooting, that is a huge factor in that army's construction and the way that they build those armies, because they don't have access to shooting.
I mean, can you imagine Soulblight having even a halfway decent skeleton unit that dies and then pops up
somewhere else?
Size it'd be
terrifying.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why armies that have this high recursion don't have effective shooting, because it would enable you to turtle up and weather
you'd be able
losses.
To block. You'd also be able to just constantly block.
In fact, the snakes and the Marathi army are kind of the only ones in the game that really have that ability, because you can bring them back with the Orator rally ability.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that was an oversight. I don't think that was ever intended to be a thing, because you just shouldn't be able to bring a unit that powerful back that easily.
My guess is if a version of that hangs out in a new Daughter's book, it'll be Witch Elves and Sisters of Slaughter.
I think it will be I don't think
it won't just be Snake.
That's if Rally hangs around. I think the jury's out on that.
But
yeah, I mean, you said Judicators.
Yeah,
I think Judicators are solid.
Judicators are solid. Judicators have this problem. They have the Space Marine problem. You're paying. When you buy Snake Ladies, you're buying, and it's a sliding scale. Snake Ladies aren't even as bad as Fusiliers, which we'll get to in a second. But when you buy Snake Ladies, you're buying 2 wounds, 5 up save. They're not that durable. They do have 2 wounds, and they're not very good in combat. Judicators, don't they weirdly have like Rend 1 in combat?
They have Rend 1 on their swords.
They're like meh in combat. They can hang around a little bit. Like, you're not picking up Judicators with 10 skeletons.
No. They'll probably win that fight.
Right. And then they have the armor, right? They have better armor.
Yeah, I think they start with I think they have a 4 up.
They're 4 up.
Yeah, I think so.
Judicators are 4 up. So but it is the Space Marine problem. You're paying you get the shooting, but you're also, because Judicators are expensive. And Vanguard Raptors are very expensive. I have the points right here, 230 for 3 of them.
Vanguard Raptors are, I think, current lists will tell you that they are still totally takeable. The army that won, or didn't win, but the army that came 3rd recently in the UK was 5 units of Annihilators and 2 units of Crossbowmen, and they just mortal wound you to death.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, okay, fine, that's a list, sure, but I think for most normal armies, paying 230 points for 3 dudes
with 2 wounds.
With 2 wounds each That is a tough pill to swallow, and they're not even that good unless you take the 70-point unit of birds with them.
So right, which I have here. So this is a 300 point. This is 100 points per shoot per dude.
Yeah.
That
is a lot.
A model that, if you're lucky, does 4 mortal wounds.
Yeah. How expensive a Varangard?
Right.
They're like up there, right?
Right. So I feel like then you have, like I said, Snake Ladies where you're saying, I don't need the armor. I'm just gonna take the shooting, and by the way, I'm gonna do it twice every turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then now I think the new terror, and what, like I said, prompted me to do this, is Fusiliers, and it's this Fusiliers Alchemite Warforger combo, which is 6s are mortals in addition.
Right, because that's always the clincher, isn't it?
Right.
Well, how do you tell good shooting in a book? You see if they do mortals on 6s.
Mortals
right?
on 6s. I have it here.
Which is a great mechanic, though. I love it for shooting. I think it's a really good mechanic.
It's that you're not looking up and hit him in the neck.
It also just speeds up the turn. I'm like, okay, I'm going to roll 30 dice. Oh, I got a bunch of 6s. Right, well, we don't need to keep rolling those dice. We're just moving on.
But with the Alchemite Warforger, you do. These are actually an addition.
Oh, that's not right.
And
that's not right.
It's for shooting, and he hits all the units around him with this.
But you say that like, I think that's the future problem. I think that's the 2024 shooting problem. I think the problem we have right now is Alapexes.
Oh yeah,
They're the current. You're
right. Well, let's talk about Alapexes. Yeah, let's talk about
Alapexes. Because you're living in the future, Zach. You're living in the future.
I am. I'm looking now. I do have Reavers here. I actually kind of think. So I think Sharks. You mentioned this too. You're thinking Sharks are going to get a nerf on their points. I think so too. Actually, Sharks are what are they? 140 or 1?
Yeah, they're like super cheap.
A Shark was the same cost as 10 Reavers a few months back.
Right.
And Reavers are 170 for 10.
Which I think is totally fine.
Totally fine. That's right. Blitzbarb archers.
They have all the weaknesses of being very light infantry, very short range.
Yep.
Not super crazy shooting stats.
They actually want to get within 9 inches to hit.
They do, yeah. The Sharks are just monsters,
and they don't. Reavers, as far as I know, don't have very many, if any, ways to do mortals on 6s. I think it's just volume of fire. They can't shoot twice, but they are cheap. You can bring they can have recursion in the right build. You can be bringing 3.
Like charging them is scary because they just have so many shots.
Yeah. So, sticking with Deepkin for a second, like you're talking about the Sharks. Sharks are probably too cheap.
Yeah, I think that this always seems to happen. Of a list will emerge from a book where you spam something 9 to 10 times and it dominates because it's effective for its points.
Yeah,
and then you multiply that by 10.
Yeah,
and you have a super effective 1,200 points of death.
Deepkin have been in a weird spot, right? Deepkin are like. Ever since it's like the book came out for this latest season that we're in, and they were kind of like, we don't think these guys can hang.
Well, we've talked about them a little bit before, where it's like, and we played them on stream when that new book came out.
Yep.
And we've always said that they are probably, if not the hardest army to play.
Yeah.
They are very punishing and very unforgiving if you make mistakes. They're also the nicest looking army.
Arguably up there for sure.
But yeah, that there hasn't really a list hasn't emerged. Like when the Seraphon book came out, it took people all of 10 minutes to be like, okay, here's the broken build.
Yeah.
And then everyone did that. Games Workshop tweaked it, and then they went, okay, here's the next broken build. Like literally 2 days later,
which is pretty much the same, but maybe it minus like
they just
temple guard.
They adjusted.
Oh, I get 5 temple guards.
They just adjusted. It was an arms race.
The place was like, oh, I see. I just have 5 temple guards.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Doesn't stop the mortal wound death. Whereas Deepkin, that's never really occurred. There's been loads of different lists.
For a wild ride.
They have, because the builds that were dominant in the previous edition of the book all went away. Those armies just became completely invalid.
At teams, Aaron Newbama, and he took it to Worlds too. I got wrecked by just melee throws.
Yeah, they seem to have leaned more into like the eels being support units and sort of objective takers, and the infantry and the Sharks being the heavy hitters. Yeah. But I think the infantry has all the infantry problems of they're slow, they're fragile. Mm-hmm. You have to have a big area to get all your attacks in. Yep. The Sharks are just little missiles. They're just super efficient missiles, and they can fly across the board.
I think
they have great range.
I might anger some probably veteran Deepkin players enjoy when you and I say that it's the hardest army to play. But I do think the Sharks have lowered that skill ceiling a bit.
Oh yeah, you can slam nine sharks on a table and just as long as you can target acquire properly, you know the threat thingies, you'll do fine.
It has the issue of objective control. It's not much on objective control, but the number of shots it puts out, and
because you take like, I think it's like, I'm trying to think of the list. It's like 9 or 10 sharks, the big turtle, which is amazing anyway, because that's just more shots and it's also a monster, and then you take some support heroes. And it's like 40 odd shots. Yeah. 3s and 3s, rend 1, D3 damage each.
And sharks have enough oomph that they can finish things off in melee.
Yeah, because if you hit something in ranged, they get their buff, and then they get to do more damage with their bites because they smell the blood.
Yeah. So question for you, okay. And I think Deep can illustrate this great. Meg and I both played at Old Town Throwdown. Normal in August. This list had just emerged, and we both played it. And the thing I felt about this list is
are we talking about the shark list?
Yeah, 2 things. He also had Reavers. He had 2 units of Reavers. What I thought about this list at that time was, with I played with my spiders.
Okay.
And I said, I probably would never lose to this list again. Maybe with spiders, I would always lose to it. But I
think spiders always lose that game. I don't know how you survive.
I said, I don't think I would lose this again. I did play it again with Beastclaw Raiders. I did not lose. It was way easier. And but the second problem with this list, which is a general shooting thing, is kind of a similar problem that Magic can have. We have a game that people always want alternating activations.
Yes.
This is the problem with shooting. This is the problem with my Beastclaw Raiders and the charge phase. If I can have 2 charge phases in a row, it's a little...
this argument.
Right? So, and the first time I lost to this list, I got double turn shooting into the turn where he also fights first. So, I mean, he had just so many activations, and I'm just sitting there.
Yeah, but that has to be turn 3, right?
I think or turn 2, whatever. If they
can you still do the thing where you can make it turn 2?
Okay. But it doesn't really matter with the sharks. They can really kind of they're good at sort of being able to pick that. But I guess can be the problem for me. How do you feel about this with scary shooting? Is that you shoot, your shooting turns very scary. You're Caradon, you're Lumineth. You shoot the heck out of me. Okay, you charge me one place or whatever. You don't charge me at all, maybe. Then you double turn me. Then you just do all that again. And sure. You haven't had to commit. You haven't actually had to lose assets like Khorne has to, or like Ogres have to, or like a scary melee army. Even Ogres, the double charge phase is scary. But once I charge, I'm there. I am in combat with you. Mm-hmm. So is this a balancing factor? Is this something that needs fixing? Like, it's hard to imagine alternating shooting. Like,
no,
you just wouldn't do it. Although new cities can shoot back at you when you shoot them.
Yeah, alternating. I mean,
it sounds clunky, right? It doesn't sound right. Like, that's not how shooting works.
Yeah, I
guess.
I think if we start talking about opening that Pandora's box, I think it just changes all the math of the whole game.
It changes everything, right?
It does. And you couldn't do it for one phase. It would feel so strange to be like, every other phase you back and forth, except this one phase you alternate, and it'd be so jarring to the play experience.
Yeah, have you had this happen to you? You've had you play Caradon, right?
I've never beaten KO. I have never beaten KO. Yeah. I get tabled by KO every time I see them on the table. I cannot do anything about it. I don't know how to defeat the army. I've played them with Stormcast. I've played them with, Bone Reapers. I've played them with
It's really a tough matchup for Bone Reapers.
It's just a tough matchup for me. I just don't know what to do against them. Yeah. They just fly around the board in their spaceships, and they just open volleys and just delete units turn after turn. Yeah. I genuinely don't know how to counter them.
Yeah.
But do I think we should alternating shooting wouldn't do anything in that matchup because I don't have any shooting. So be like, okay, you go. And okay, I don't have any. Oh, you go again. It would just make the game longer. I think what's more is...
It would just be embarrassing.
Yeah, it would, yeah. Like, oh, I shot. Do you want to shoot? Oh, you don't have any guns? Okay, my turn then. More guns. I would just I would add more command point. If we assume 3rd edition isn't going to change like a great deal going into 4th, I would add more reactions like 40k and Heresy has, where you can go to ground,
take cover.
So you can take cover. You can
take cover in one place and all defend somewhere else.
Yeah, do stuff like that. Or again, make cover rules work so that you can hide from the guns.
Cover is tough.
Cover is tough.
Cover is really hard. You know, if you play a competitive game, I've played when I was playing Daughters. I was big into cover because I would always put that big because I want an armor save, right? So I'd always try to put that cover piece in the center of the board where I thought I was going to be playing. But if you don't do that, and if your opponent sets up, people don't, you know, they just kind of willy-nilly put stuff around.
It's tough because I really understand from their side. They don't want to overly complicate the game. They really want to keep the game to like, I don't know how many pages it's last time, but like they've always tried to keep it to like, you can get that like double A4 8-page or whatever it is, and that's the entire game base rule set, and they want to keep it to that.
Yeah.
And I get that, but I think looking at how they've made the hero phase more and more complicated, I think they maybe need to shed that notion and just make the game as complex as it needs to be as fun as it can be.
Mr. The Green says, I think a universal ability to make your units harder to hit would work, like Serpentine Running. So yeah, do you give a -1? You know, they're...
Well, I mean, what would help, I think, is long-range shooting being worse. Because if your shooting only really activates at like 12-inch range or 9-inch range, I'm like, okay, sure, you're only going to get this once, then I'm in. Right. You might get it twice if you get lucky.
That's like Reavers.
Right. But I think having shooting that's like crossbows and like the snakes, where it's like 24 inches, 36 inches, and you can just hit people from across the board, I think that's where we need to start seeing more penalties.
Yeah.
The hit values get worse.
I do think Fusiliers are going to be an issue. I expect to see their prices go up again. In combination with the Alchemy Warforger, it's too many shots. There are sub-factions that let 3 units of Fusiliers all attack.
And one guy can buff all 3 units?
The Alchemy Warforger, yeah.
Right.
It's wholly within 12 of him. You need to get this. It's a spell.
Oh, okay. So
there's that.
There is that, yeah.
But he's got to cast it. It's a 7. He has +1 to cast.
And it affects every unit within 12.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it like an aura?
It is.
Okay, so he has to still be there and whatnot. Okay.
I think they're going to be scary. They also have a 4-up unrendable against shooting.
That's real good. Them. Yeah, that's real.
So
good.
if you try to shoot them, you know they're 1 wound each.
Yeah, but the more of that stuff actually, like you know, again, not that Mortek Guard need any more defensive buffs, but like anything that has like a shield, give it an unrendable against shooting because they just literally put shields up. Like that, I think that'd be fun.
In the case of the Alchemite, the Fusiliers, they have not moved to get this.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Or used a particular order.
Right. Okay.
So cool. Mortek Guard that don't move. Cool.
Yeah,
I'm cool with unrendable for. Well,
not
the best example.
Well, but that would be like an unrendable 2-up, so you know.
Not the best example, but still.
Yeah, you get what I mean.
Okay, the other problem, I think, one of the other things about shooting, you have units, you do have, the 6 is the wound, right? And then you have units like armies like Cruel Boys where it's like, this is the whole army, right? The whole army is centered around this.
I played against Brad, my friend Brad, who we featured his Maggotkin army on the show a ways back.
Right.
Well, he got a new Cruel Boys army that he's been testing out against me.
Because they, sorry to interrupt you real quick, but they
ahead.
have had the same kind of resurgence that that Deepkin have had, where they're like, you know what? Let's just keep dropping the points on this army.
Yeah, but do you know what? It ain't enough.
Yeah.
Like, he'll have 2 units of 6.
Yeah.
With the shaman guy that gives them the poison.
Yeah.
And the boss guy that doubles the damage.
Yeah.
Still doesn't
big yellows, he's got the extra range.
Yeah, big
but
yellows. Still doesn't do enough.
Yeah.
Still doesn't get the job done. It's not an army killing. But you stack it all on. It's dangerous.
It's dangerous, but you can't really. It's 5s are 1 mortal wound and 6s are 3.
Yeah, 6s are 2.
6s are 2, 5s are 1.
Yeah.
And he's going into your Bone Reapers.
Yeah, like he usually deletes the crawler pretty comfortably.
That's pretty standard.
But I'm like, okay, sure,
you've made your peace with that.
Yeah, I'm like, crawler can die. I don't care. I just see it now as 10 more wounds for the Mortek Guard, and if it's there, it is, and if it's not,
a bummer. Yeah, but that's what it. Yeah.
But then anything else that it tries to deal with, they just don't put out enough.
Yeah.
And then you've invested so many points into getting them to a level that's okay. You don't have an army. Like his front line is 2 units of
Gut Rippers.
Of the Gut Rippers, and even though they're 2 wounds each, you just go through them.
Yeah, they have what, 5 up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are -1 to hit, or they just built the shield thing in now, so it's like they're permanently -1 to hit. But
that's something.
Yeah, I mean, they're all right, but like again, I really think that army specifically is meant to be support pieces for the larger orc army. I don't think you're meant to take them as like these are all you take, Cruel Boys.
So the question then, I guess, I think everybody would admit, and I never want to single out a single army, but the army that definitively, because Lumineth, Deepkin, you can have cool melee builds with these armies.
Oh, totally.
Especially Deepkin. Lumineth.
Oh no, Lumineth with the cows and the Beaver of Secrets and the Hammer Boys. Like, you can go in. You don't need
Daughters,
shooting.
totally fine.
Yeah, daughters, yeah.
Stormcast. It's Caradon. Caradon are the list that you are thinking. What else? What do you do? Right? Do you give them more melee? Do you?
Well, you can actually build them fully melee now.
You can.
You can build like a really good melee army. I mean, the boats aren't melee. The boats are boats, but like all the guys in it they get out. They're melee. They're pretty strong.
Yeah. You
could do that, but why would you when you can just take guns?
Yeah,
just all the guns.
And the boats have guns.
And the boats have great guns.
So you're inherently teching into it.
Yep.
Yeah. What would you? What do you want to see in fourth with shooting? How does fourth change shooting? Terrain. Let's talk terrain.
Yeah, terrain. I think terrain needs to get better. I think terrain needs to benefit the infantry and the units that are vulnerable to shooting.
You want terrain to what if a piece can give cover?
Yeah.
That works the same way it does now, but also maybe -1 against shooting. Is that too much?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if you're like, I kind of like how 40k does it, where it's like if you're just within 3 inches of cover, you count as having cover kind of thing. If you're near a terrain piece, it's kind of
you don't have to put 20 witch elves
exactly
in a somebody's neoprene mouse pad.
I like that, like giving cover, giving it more of a effect on the battlefield, not just the actual piece, but like around the piece, as in the troops are ducking and weaving. Again, I would limit it to infantry predominantly. But yeah, you could do other things where, like, the 3-inch rule about blocking line of sight, I would make that more restrictive on shooting, so that if you are shooting, and there is any terrain intervening, that you get the -1, and then they get a +1. So it's kind of stacking on the defensibles a bit.
But is it not a little funky though? You gotta admit, when you're within 3 inches, like in front of the terrain piece.
Well, yeah, no, in 4K you don't get that.
You don't get that.
There has to be some kind of
something.
Yeah, you can't just be like, my back is to you, and I'm looking at a piece of terrain.
I'm 3 inches away from you, and there's a forest 3 inches behind me.
No, you don't get that. It has to be written smartly, and very, written effectively, so people can't abuse it. But I also just think shooting should just not be as accurate and effective as melee. The game is a melee game. If my Stormcaster 3s to hit you in melee, I don't really understand why they're 3s to hit you at range. Like I think the ranges of shooting attacks just need to be worse.
Ranges worse or like hitting?
Accurate. Yeah, to hit.
Fusiliers are 4 and 4.
Yeah, and I feel like that should be. Yeah. But I feel like that should be where the elite shooters live.
4s.
Yeah.
Maybe wounding is okay, but
wounding's fine. Yeah. But like, I would make the
Vanguard Raptors are 3s and 2s, and if there's some stupid birds near the target, they're 2s.
And if you all out attack, like the fact that I would also just not give all out attack to shooting. I would also just make it a melee only thing.
Oh, that would. I don't know about that one.
So that just makes every shooting unit super effective. It's like, oh, these are my shooting guys. I just make them 3s to hit now.
If you did your first thing and dropped, Judicators are hitting on 4, Bow Snakes are hitting on 4. Wounding with 3s. If you did your first thing, then I would still want auto attack. I'd want to be able to pay to get up to 3. And this is actually less scary because, in my opinion, because the scary thing often is that it's when it's things like Caradon and Lumineth when it's 2 units of Sentinels. It's like you said, it's the buffs, right? With Lumineth, it's like it doesn't sound that bad until they drink their ether quartz, and it's like, oh, now or the spell that they cast, right?
Yeah.
Oh, mortals on 6s, okay, but no, it's mortals on 5s and 6s. They always seem to go a little overboard. They're like, oh, you can shoot in the hero face.
I would also like that. I would default that across the entire game is 6s to do stuff can never ever be improved. You can never make it 5s and 4s. Just like 6s are the sweet spot. You want to roll 6s. It's like getting a crit. It feels good. Making that better just means you ignore the whole rest of the army and you just fish for that. Yeah. You're like, oh wait, I can make okay, I'm just going for this now.
And as Jupiter's saying, lower the number of shots, right? And that's
that's also fine. Again, I would then worry about making them also. I think you've got to find a balance of you're asking people to roll a bunch of dice, but those numbers are less effective.
Yeah.
Or you're asking them to not roll lots of dice, but then you keep them as effective. Because
Keep them
otherwise,
more effective.
because you don't want to get to a point where you're spending 240, 400 points on a shooting unit, and then it does absolutely nothing, and you're like, well, why did I spend these points? You don't want it to feel bad.
Right. No, people won't take shooting.
No,
and that's a problem. Like
and then we're back to the problem.
And I think what you said is interesting, which is that what do you want a shooting unit to do? You know, for 10 bow snakes currently, you're talking about Cruel Boys. You know, I can pop out of a forest, see anything in a Cruel Boys army that I can see, and kill it.
Yep.
With 10 bow snakes. I can probably do that in a lot of armies and without even using the hero phase.
So maybe the answer is to not make shooting units the hammers of the army. It's like they're meant to be weakened.
You want them to soften up.
Soften up targets.
I think that's a great way to think about it. It's that, you know, your Fusiliers, your Cruel, your Bolt Boys, whatever, they help other things be a hammer.
Yeah.
They because instead of 20 Gut Rippers going into 20 Mortrak Guard, they're going into 15, or that's still not enough.
I get your point. But it seems
bad example.
It seems to be the units where they have too many effects for being good shooters, like like elite shooting units. Like I think where shooting units should live is, okay, you've got a unit of like generic infantry for your army, and this is most armies. Most armies have a unit that's like 100, 120 points.
Mm-hmm.
You get a bunch of dudes. They're for holding objectives and being screens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Add 50 points to that, 60 points, whatever, 70 points. That's your base core shooting unit.
That's kind of what we
that
have,
kind of
right?
needs to be where they live, and that's where they stop.
Because so I think Blitzbarb Archers are an example of a unit that I feel kind of okay about.
Yeah, Blitzbarb are good, but they aren't dominating.
Yeah.
They do a role, and the role is good. And I mean, to be fair, that whole army's gist is a death by 1,000 cuts, so it kind of feeds into what everyone's archer should be doing. But it's units that get targeted are units like the bow snakes, the crossbowmen from the Stormcast, and you know the high elf ones, the Lumineth ones, where it's like they are doing the work. For the army.
Yeah.
Same with KO. And I think
KO...
That mentality might need to be the thing that adjusts, where it's like shooting isn't there to dominate the game. It's there to counter specific targets and weaken units so that the infantry or the melee can go in and do the work. Yeah,
I think... but the problem is, you know, you have to be careful because an example of a unit that shoots... No, Cody, I don't think he's not saying that. He's saying the...
No, they're not a screen.
The thralls are a screen. The reavers are shooting.
Yeah, so you're paying you're getting a like screen profile, but they have the range thing which makes them slightly more expensive. And
maybe worse than a screen profile melee.
Maybe worse than a screen.
But probably almost.
But then I think you can have them have two roles. You can have them be like assassins, where they're infiltrating and they're going to try and get beads on. And I would give them roles where they can target characters and stuff like that. So they're like sneaking around, you know, trying to disrupt. And then you've got the more like traditional army line units that are behind the screens firing over to weaken things for a potential counter charge.
That's like sentinels, stuff like
that.
Yeah, the example I was going to give is the shooting fire slayers. You know, previously they were good, but they got sort of put into a position where they're really not that good anymore.
Right, but they're okay.
They are okay.
Again, but we always compare shooting to, is it going to delete entire units like crossbowmen and bow snakes? If the answer is no, we generally just put them in this category if they're not good.
But this is where that's an example of where we want it. Even ogres, when they're not in the shooty subcategory.
Yeah, I like the little units of the two ogres with the cannons. I think they're useful. Like they can do work. But again, they're not gonna destroy an army, but they can definitely do work. And charging them is a scary proposition.
Yeah.
They can be pretty scary to charge.
Steven, we're about out of time. What are you painting these days?
Not a lot.
I know. I'm not trying to call you out. I kind of know the answer, but I did want to know what you're.
Yeah, it was a busy summer, and I kind of just put out because I am not fortunate enough right now to have a dedicated painting area. So when I hobby, I have to get the hobby out and set it all up and paint, and it's usually where I'm working or I'm going to eat, so it always gets packed away. So I just haven't unpacked it in a while. I haven't really had much impetus to paint.
Yeah.
But the ghouls definitely caught my eye, and I was like, I was like, oh, maybe... Again, whenever I get into these hobby funks, I kind of have to rehabilitate myself. I have to start very small and, like, I might paint a hero.
Yeah,
and then I might paint a little unit. And if I get a big army project out and I'm like, okay, I need to finish these, like, 30 Mortek Guard, I will never do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I might get the FOMO box, though, and they might ease me back into painting. Because I definitely want to get Ushoran. I want to paint him. He's beautiful.
Okay.
What about you? What are you painting?
I'm cranking out cities right now. I just finished the Wildacor Hunters.
Nice.
With the dogs, you know.
Oh yeah. I love that kit.
Literally right now I'm assembling Fusiliers.
How many Fusiliers do you
20.
have? Oh god, okay. I'm excited to play them though. I am genuinely excited. I've not played against them yet. I know very little about them.
I've been saying I might do something I hate doing, and I know you do this, and I don't mean to ridicule you, but play with things unfinished. I think I have.
I have models in my collection that I haven't painted since the birth of Age of Sigmar. My Star Drake is the original Star Drake release from when they first came out in first edition.
Yeah.
And he is still not finished.
Yeah.
He does have paint on him. You wouldn't know if you looked at him. Most people are like, oh, he looks cool.
Your
but I'm like, he is not
look
finished.
amazing, but every time I play you, there's like 4 completely finished units and then a bunch of gray plastic. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Because I'm a slow painter. If I had that rule, I would literally get in one game every 4 years.
I know. Last thing I do want to say real quick. This is the first. You guys are the first stream we're telling this to. Steve and I have these shirts on. We closed the window originally on these shirts, but however, we had. I'm not going to go into it, but we had this situation with our printer where these are screen printed, not digital printed.
No, and the quality is really nice.
So yeah, they're screen printed locally, and so we had this issue where they got a shirt wrong, and then they got 2 more shirts wrong, and we were like, hey, can you reprint these? And they're like, no, we can only print in groups of 24. And we were like, oh, okay. So we talked to them, we worked something out. We were printing another run. They agreed to print less than 24 for us. So we have another week open on these, and if you're interested, reach out in Discord to me or Megan, just so you know. Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome, Steven. I think we did. Anything else?
No.
How you feeling? No. You excited? You gonna get your flesh eater?
I think so.
The other thing we need to hold a fire to Steven's feet on is LVO.
No. Oh right.
We need to force an LVO decision. He thought he got out of it, but then they opened up a bunch more tickets.
I need to get on that.
Yeah. So
January's looking busy. I need to work out what's happening in January.
It's not the end of January. It's not the last weekend in January either. It's the second to last weekend, which is a little. Okay. I think.
Yeah, but I feel like it's gonna be tomorrow.
It is. That is pretty similar to tomorrow. It is. I mean, November is.
I know. It's like over in a couple of days.
November is so over. I was like, it's almost November 20th. It's November 27th.
Yeah, it's almost December 1st. I think you'll find. But no, yeah. Hopefully the ghouls will get my hobby mojo back. But we need to play a game. Actually, we've not played a game.
We should maybe next weekend. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. All right. Also, maybe I'll have Plastic Cities. Right.
That'd be great. I would love to play against Cities.
Okay. All right. I'll see what I can do. Awesome. Folks, that's it. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.